Hey guys, what's going on? It's Mark with Spiguyver Backpacking. I am here tonight to go through the question and answer. So I got a lot of questions, and that's what we're going to do tonight. But first, I wanted to take a minute and just on a serious note, my thoughts and prayers are with all of the people out there that are suffering in Texas. Now that I'm out in Oklahoma, you know, it's just our neighbor to the south down in Texas. With all the flooding, everything that went on there, the damage, and thoughts go out right now to all the people that are in Florida with Hurricane Irma barreling towards them. My family was in Charleston. They went up to my mom's house up in Virginia to just make sure if something was to change. Right now it's not forecasted to go up that way, but just in case something was to change, they're out of harm's way. So with that being said, let's get into this. Okay, so you guys are probably going to get a kick out of this one, but I had to pause this and take a quick break because this light that I've got attached to my camera is so bright I can't read what's on my paper anymore. I've just got these blue spots, so I can't even read what's there. And the cat's gonna join us. I've got the backpack over here because I'm ready. I'm gonna head out tomorrow morning, get an overnighter in, test out a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and go. So I'm just gonna read first name, last initial, because I really don't wanna call out people's names or mispronounce them, as that's probably the case of what would happen. So Mike G, he's got the first question. He says he converted away from a jet boil to an oil camp, ion canister stove to save weight, but it's having trouble staying lit. So anytime there's a gentle breeze, he says even a light breeze, just the lightest of breezes, it's going out on him. So he's wondering about whether or not he can use a windscreen. He says, you know, I've heard that windscreens shouldn't be used with canister stoves. So what can I do? So actually there are some pretty cool windscreens that go with canister stoves. They just go on top of the canister, underneath the actual burner of the stove, and then up to about the base of the stove, or to the pot itself. So they're not very big, but they fit under there and they block the wind. Or if you don't want to go that route and you want to use a regular windscreen, just use it on the upwind side of the stove, so that the wind that's coming in will get blocked, but you're not. The problem with using a windscreen, like a full windscreen with a canister stove, is that it heats up the fuel in the canister and you can overpressurize the canister and have lots of problems that way. So if you just have it on the upwind side blocking the wind, that should help. Or if you want to, you can get the ones that are meant for canister stoves. MSR, I believe, makes them. A couple other companies out there, I'm sure, make them. And I'll go ahead and right down here, I will put a picture of what I'm talking about, just so that you've got the mental picture there of what it is that that we're talking about. So next up, Benny V asked if I was going to be changing things up, whether or not I'd be going to the ground and not using hammocks as much since I've moved out here. He said that he's driven through here before and knows eastern Oklahoma and knows that there's not a whole lot as far as trees go. Well, no, I really don't want to. If I absolutely have to, maybe for some trips to Colorado or something, you know, there may be some times where I'm going to have to go to ground. But for the most part, I'm going to stick with the hammock. I've got a lot of trips planned right now, and all of them are in areas that I should be able to hang a hammock and not have any problems. So tomorrow I'm headed to Greenleaf State Park. I've got a few different trips planned down to the Wichita Trail. There are a whole bunch of good places on the south and east side of the state that really are nice. Once you get out west, though, that's where it really becomes more barren and a little bit harder. There is a place down, it's actually southwest of here in Lawton, called Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge, and that's one of the places that do plan on going. So I've got I've gotten several questions about the move. So I moved just on Sunday from South Carolina. I moved out here to take a new job in Oklahoma. I'm in Oklahoma City, and I've lived here before. I lived here for about 6.5 years, maybe 7 years, a while back. Enjoy the area. We really like the area, so we were pretty excited about coming back here. Now it is a change as far as the scenery goes, as far as the environment. It's not as humid. It's been pretty nice waking up in the mornings and it not being 75 degrees and muggy. It's actually been getting down into the 50s, mid to lower 50s at night where I am here, and so getting up in the morning and having it actually be a little bit cool isn't a bad change. I'm not a fan of sweating first thing in the morning, so that's kind of nice. But I have had a lot of people ask about the move. So yeah, I'm out here now, new job, gonna keep doing what I do. So Barry, Mr. Barry, he sent in enough questions. We probably could have done an entire episode just for Barry's questions. But I want to address at least most of his questions. And so he asks about what is the best backpacking hammock. The best backpacking hammock is the hammock that you are comfortable in and sleep well in and is light enough to be on your back and not be a burden. There is no one answer for that. It's going to be different for everybody. You know, you've got the people that are absolutely dream hammock all the way, gung-ho. Then you've got the Dutch hammocks over here, and then you've got your Hennessy people over here, and you've got your bridge hammocks over here. It's all about what you're comfortable carrying and taking with you, what you can get a good night's sleep in. For me, right now it's kind of been going back and forth between 3 hammocks. The lightest hammock that I really take backpacking is the half-wit. It's in the 1.0 Hexon, so it's super light. I think the entire package in the double-ended stuff sack's about 9 ounces. Then I've got the Chameleon, which is a very versatile hammock, with it having the bug net that can be removed, with it having the top cover that can be removed. It is the most versatile hammock I have, and it's comfortable. Then I've got my newest one, the Dream Hammock Darien, which is kind of the in-between. It's got the full zip-up bug net, doesn't have the top cover, but it's a little bit lighter fabric and super comfortable. It's the wide, and so it's kind of in between. I think it's about 12.8 to 13 ounces, somewhere in there. And then I've got the, you know, the Chameleon is in the 16 to 17 ounce range, I believe, with either the bug net or the top cover. I don't believe that's with both. So those are the ones that I like to go with. Can I sleep in a backpacking hammock? Well, I hope so. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't take that one backpacking. Will I be warm enough camping in a hammock? If you go and you watch my hammock how-to number 4, I believe, on insulation, or a video I did a while back on how to stay warm in your hammock, then you will be warm enough in your hammock. Just know that you do need, once it's, for me, anywhere below 70 degrees. Some people will get down to 65. Some people are hard asses and can go way lower than that, but I need something beneath me. Whether it be a pad or an underquilt, I need something to keep my butt warm. Can I stay dry? Can I stay dry in my hammock when it rains? Again, I hope you can. So the key to that is having a good tarp and a good tarp setup. And this weekend, while I'm out doing this backpacking trip, I will be filming and doing the next hammock how-to, which will be out on Tuesday, and that one will be on tarps. And so I'm going to go through a few different scenarios with that, just regular setups. I've got different types of suspensions on my tarps, and I'm going to show how to set up when it's raining, how to set up when it's dry, how to set it up for porch mode, how to set it up when you want to view the stars. So we're going to go through a whole bunch of different things there with that, so stay tuned for that one. Do hammocks weigh less than tents? Not really. I think it's you can get hammocks that are lighter than tents. You can get tents that are lighter than most hammocks. So it all depends on how much you're willing to spend and what gear you're going to get. You know, a hammock, forget about the weight, it's more comfortable. Well, for 85 to 90% of the people out there, the hammock is going to be more comfortable. You're going to sleep better. You're not going to wake up sore. There are those people out there, though, that just cannot sleep in a hammock. And for them, you know, the tarp or the tent is probably going to be what they need to go with. And the cat wants to be a star. So she's hanging out with us a little bit. Do hammocks cost less than tents? Again, this one kind of depends. I mean, you could go and get a cheapo Ozark Trail tent at Walmart, and then you could go get a Dream Hammock or a Chameleon and a Cuban fiber tarp from Hammock Gear, and you're going to be spending more. It's all relative. You know, a good backpacking tent, if you want a good ultralight backpacking tent, and you go with like a Z-Packs, their Hexamid or something like that, you're looking at about $500. You can go with something like a Henry Shire's tarp tent, and you're looking in the $200 to $400 range there, and they're all lightweight pieces of gear. So it really does depend, and that's kind of the answer to a lot of the questions there. Should I get a 2-person hammock for my spouse and I? If your goal is to cuddle, be very close, and just kind of hang out in it, absolutely go for it. If you want to sleep, if you want to go out backpacking or you want to go out camping in it, no. Now there are some very specific 2-person hammocks out there that really are 2 hammocks put together where they're not really, they've got different suspensions with them. So you aren't hanging both from one suspension. If you've got a gathered end hammock and you try and sleep in it with another person, you both get kind of pushed together. Neither one of you are laying really flat, and it's not comfortable. So the term double hammock does not mean that it is for 2 people. It just means that it's a wider hammock. And really, I think a lot of people in the industry, if you talk with them, will tell you that that is a misnomer and a term, a phrase that probably shouldn't be used by the industry. Now, you won't see a lot of the cottage industry vendors using those terms. You'll hear that more from the big box store type brands that are out there. So the next question from Barry is, are there times when tents are better than hammocks? And I've got to say yes. You know, there are times where a tent is going to be much better than a hammock, but there are a lot of times, probably more times, where a hammock is better than a tarp, or tent. I keep saying tarp, but tent. There's a lot of times where a hammock is going to be much better than a tent. But to answer your question, Barry, yes, there are times. Sometimes when you are out, so if you were a Pacific Crest Trail thru hiker, it's going to be really tough in the first couple hundred miles to use a hammock. There's not going to be a whole lot of trees while you're in the desert. You may find some, you may have to go off trail, you may have to really stagger where your spots that you're going to stay are, but it's just so much easier to use a tent in those situations. You guys know how hard it can be to find the perfect trees on any given day. So that's my answer to that one, because there won't be trees everywhere. So the next one from Barry, and like I said, Barry has enough questions here, they could be just a complete episode all on its own. Worst case scenario of hammock camping when you absolutely can't find a place to hang. I agree, that is a worst case scenario, and I've been out, actually the trip that I took with Dylan, this last trip that we took when we were going on the Foothills Trail, we had a hard time finding good trees to hang from. And there could be a a variety of reasons why you can't find the right trees to hang from. Could be the distance they are apart, could be how thick the brush is around them. If you're practicing any form of leave no trace, you're not going to be out there with a machete chopping down all the brush so that you can hang your hammock. You're trying to leave the place as you found it. So there have been times where it's been tough to find a spot, especially when you're trying to find two spots close to each other. It's not just the distance of the trees, it's not just the brush, it's when you look overhead and you find, man, there's a lot of dead trees around here, or there are huge dead limbs hanging up there. So there are times where it's very, very difficult to find the right spot. So you either have to compromise and hang in not quite so perfect a spot, or there are times where you may have to go to ground. I've not found one of those times yet, but I'm sure my day is coming. Another one from Barry is, what about when you need to change clothes and it's raining? So I think for the most part, anytime I'm out backpacking, I don't really care about when I'm changing clothes, but I do it most of the time underneath the tarp. And as long as your tarp isn't pitched super low, you can kind of push your hammock to the side underneath there and change your clothes no problem. If you've got a tarp with doors, it's almost like you're in a tent and changing, so it's not a big deal at all. If you're a little bit shy or bashful and there's other people around, find a tree to go behind, or like if it's raining, stay inside of your tarp. Take care of all that before you take down your tarp. I think the basic considerations for hammock camping are kind of being covered throughout my hammock how-to series, but it's finding the right trees to hang from, selecting a good spot, and enjoying it, finding a way to become comfortable. So the basics, really one of the things that I think everyone should be cognizant of is use straps on the trees. Don't use ropes. Not only does that protect the trees, and yes, there will be somebody that comments on this that says, show me evidence, show me that ropes hurt trees. You know what? Like I said in a discussion I got in with somebody else, it does not matter whether I can show you or I can't show you that there's evidence. If a Park Service ranger thinks that it's causing damage, or someone has written something that says that it causes damage, that's what's going to happen. They're going to enforce that, and it doesn't matter what you say. Your argument doesn't hold water with them. You don't have the science behind it. I mean, are you taking a bunch of literature out there and showing it to them? Even if you do, that's not what they're about. If you've ever dealt with any government bureaucracy, it's not about being right. It's about them saying what it is and you following it. So use straps, hang from a 30-degree angle, get a ridge line. Make sure you have your ridge line about 83 to 85% of your, 80 to 85, with 83 being about the sweet spot of your hammock length, and find what's comfortable. That's pretty much the basics of it. So there are several states, now that we're talking about suspensions, and this will be another follow-up video, because now that I'm in Oklahoma and I'm doing some hanging in Texas, and I've gone to some hangs in Florida, all three of these states are now starting to go to requiring 2-inch tree straps. So I'm testing out a few different things right now, and it'll probably be another follow-up video on the hammock how-to for people that are in these types of places. So Barry wanted to know how long my drive was out here. So I was towing the camper, and my truck, when it's towing the camper, gets about 7 to 8 miles to the gallon. 22-gallon tank or something in that neighborhood. So I was stopping about every 2 hours. So that adds to the trip for sure. When you Google it, I think it came up about 18 hours, 17 to 18 hours. I think I probably made it in about 20 to 21 with quite a few stops. And I even stopped and got a little bit of sleep there, a little bit in a rest area. It was a long drive. I was tired when I got here. So I think we're out of Barry's questions. I mean, oh, we're out of them for now, but he does make an appearance later on again. He couldn't resist asking some more. So this one's from Don R. And where are your next adventures going to be? Moving to a new state, what are you looking forward to most about hiking there? So I think one of the things I really am excited about is exploring new areas, different terrain, and I've lived out here. And when I lived out here, I did a lot of mountain biking. It's while I was racing a lot. And so I saw the trails, but I saw them in a different way. And so I think it's going to be really cool to get out, try some new trails. Trails that I had biked on, I probably won't be doing much in the way of hiking on, but there are other trails that I've got in mind. Mostly, like I said, on the eastern part of the state. Now that I'm a little bit closer to Colorado, I will definitely be doing some Colorado trips, some New Mexico, some more Texas. You know, there are some great spots that I really want to get out to, check out, see, and get some good hiking in on. Hiking and backpacking, mostly backpacking. Okay, from Jeremy R. He's got a question. Last time, his last trip was the first time he'd used Permethrin, and he usually just uses DEET. So he says he was primarily using it for ticks. However, I'd never used DEET on the Laurel Highlands hiking trail. Bugs seem to run away. Was this a rarity, my trail smell, or does Permethrin help with mosquitoes this much as well? In my experience, Permethrin helps with just about every bug out there. Not only do I coat my or soak my hiking gear and then hang it out to dry, I also do my hammock, the netting on the hammock, especially if it's a like a Franke style or just another type or a sock that goes over the hammock. I'll treat those as well, and I really don't even see the bugs on the net at that point. They just stay away. That stuff is really, really effective. I think it's probably one of the best things going out there. I've also started using the Picardin, which is also, you can get that from Sawyer as well. So if you get both of them together, there's actually packages on Amazon where they come together, and that seems to work really well for the ticks and the mosquitoes. And the great thing about it is it does not melt your gear. If you are messing with DEET and you've got a high percentage of DEET and you get that on some of your gear, some of the nylon products, even on some of your tents or tarps or hammocks, depending on what type of stuff you do out there, it will melt it. I've seen it happen, and it's not good, not something that you want to have happen. So yeah, Permethrin really is that good. It really is that effective. So Alice S. says, I'd like to know how to deal with common setup mistakes, such as trees too close, too far, suspension too low, too high, how to fix them. She says someday she'll get a longer hammock, but for now she's stuck in an Eno, and it's tough to get flat. So Alice, I'd say one of the first things I would do with that Eno is figure out the length of the Eno, because I believe there are a couple different lengths out there. Do the 83%, make yourself a ridge line for it, and use that as a good starting point. Now, if the trees are closer together, you have to go lower on the trees with your suspension, and if they're further apart, you have to go higher, because as you get further out, to get that 30-degree hang, you know, it's going to have to be higher because of the length of run there. And likewise, if you're in closer, you go shorter. And that's why in my backyard in Charleston, I put in the posts about 13 feet apart so that I only had to go about 5 feet high and not any higher. The further apart they are, the higher they go, and it actually creates more torque on those poles. So by going shorter, closer together, it was close enough that I could hang my tarp still from it and get my hammock on there without having to cause too much stress on the posts. So Joseph S. says, you know, one thing I've not seen addressed on YouTube is the possibility of layering bottom quilts. There's obviously a potential problem with that, but I wonder if it could be worked around. I think that would be an educational video just right there. I agree, and I think that I'm going to do one on it. Absolutely, you can layer. They call it stacking quilts. You can do it. I have actually done it, and I think I will now do a video about it. So thank you, Joseph, for giving me that idea. And now we're back to another Barry V question. Can I use Coleman camping lantern fuel, white gas, to cook in an alcohol stove? No, you can't. Don't try it. Don't do it. Only use alcohol. So then his next question is kind of a follow-up to this. What's a good brand of cooking alcohol? So there's really three different types of alcohol that you can use. There's methanol, which is heat. There's ethanol with a little bit of methanol in it so that you don't drink it, and that's rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. And then there's just straight ethanol, which is your grain alcohol, your Everclear. All three of them will work and can be used. You've got your denatured alcohol, all good stuff, all can be used. But when it comes down to it, probably the easiest one to use, the one that a lot of people will use, is the heat in the yellow bottle. It's actually a fuel line antifreeze. You can get it at Walmart. A lot of times you can find it in like a 3-pack where it's buy 2 get 1 free, and I've seen them as low as like 88 cents a piece. So you get 3 of them for like $1.70. You can't beat it. It's good stuff. You don't even have to use a fuel can, like a bottle, when you go out. You can just take the whole heat bottle with you, unless you want to break it down. So ethanol burns at a higher temperature, but methanol ignites at a lower temperature, and so it actually gets going and will boil at a lower temperature. So it actually will, if you're using anything pressurized or anything that uses jets, it will work faster and bring it to a boil faster. So those are some things to think about. Next question is, can I use 91% rubbing alcohol to cook? So yes you can. You could actually, so 99% is better. It's a better option. 91 works, and even 70 can work. If you can get it to light, it'll work. It does burn with a more yellow flame, and it is a little bit sooty and sometimes has a smoke. I wouldn't do it indoors. All right, I really like this next question, and this guy just had his own Q&A, and great guy. If you haven't been watching his channel, I highly suggest you go over and check it out. I'll put a link to it down below, just because, you know, we've done a couple of collaborations together. He came up with the idea of doing the spoof on Tim Watson about the poop trials. So I gotta say, Restless Outdoors, dude, your channel cracks me up. I love watching your stuff. So his question is, if my company paid me or gave me a paid leave of absence for 8 months, and my family said, get out of here, go take 8 months, go hike, yeah, like that would ever freaking happen. Which of the 3 trails would we be seeing you at? The AT, the PCT, or the NCT? Or would you pick something completely different? So if I had 8 months, it sure as hell better not take me 8 months to do any of those trails. But, you know, as much as I'd love to do the PCT, there are parts of it just don't interest me. That first few 100 miles down there in the desert until you hit the Sierras just wouldn't really do it for me. I'm not a fan of that environment, the having to carry, you know, 3 gallons of water with you because you don't know where your next water supply is going to come from. Just doesn't appeal to me. So AT for sure. You guys know I love the AT. I talk about it all the time. I've been out on it. So AT, I think I could do it in 4, maybe 5 months. Then with the rest of the time, I would go out and I'd spend, you know, about 20 days probably out on the John Muir Trail, the JMT. You know, I've done other sections of trail in that area that that coincide with both the PCT and the JMT, and some of the most gorgeous terrain anywhere. Anywhere. I don't care where you've been, that area is some of the most beautiful terrain ever. And then I think, I'd love to take my middle son, Ryan. He actually hasn't been on any of the videos backpacking with me. He's done some trips with me. He's done some AT trips with me, some several day trips. But it's all been before I was doing the videos. So he hasn't been on here, and he hasn't done a lot since. He's, I don't know if it's because I've got the video going or what. Maybe I should ask him. But I would love to take him to Australia. And there's like a 104 kilometer hike. It's called the Great Ocean Walk. It's in Victoria. I'd love to take him down there. He's got this obsession with all things Australia. And so I think it'd be really cool. Take him down there, mix it in, do that hike. 104 kilometers. We take it pretty easy. And I think that'd be a great way to wrap up the 8 months. Yep. So let's see. SMK says, or SMK What's Next says, what was your favorite trail you've hiked so far? Keep it up. Enjoy your channel. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the support. And it's hard to name a favorite trail. A lot of people would think I was going to say AT because I've spent a lot of time there. But honestly, it's got to be something in the Sierras. So Yosemite always comes to mind. Love that area. Love going into Yosemite and hiking out of the valley. Once you get past Vernal Falls and you get up to Nevada Falls, the crowds go away if you're going that way. If you're going up into Little Yosemite Valley area, Half Dome area. But you get out into the backcountry, and it's remote. It's epic, gorgeous views. So Yosemite's definitely one of them. But I've got to say, one of my friends, we like to call him Sir Pax a lot. I know that there are other people out there with the same trail name, but Sir Pax-a-Lot and I had a great trip to the Ansel Adams Wilderness. And this coincided with both the JMT and the PCT in spots. We did some off-trail hiking, some route finding, map and compass work. And we spent, I think it was about 4 days out there. We actually cut the trip a little bit short, but great trip. I've said this several times lately, that one of my favorite campsites was, we were on the Thousand Island Lake, on the shore of it, and waking up and seeing Banner Peak just basking in the morning glow was pretty damn awesome, I gotta say. Another really good story from that one. So, bear encounter. We were camped in Mammoth before heading out on that trip, and we were in a regular campground. It was sometime in the middle of the night, and it's kind of funny because you hear different sides of this story, whether you talk to me or you talk to Sir Pax-a-Lot, Darren, Dumpy, whatever you want to call him. We've all got so many names, don't we? But so he and I were in a tent. Yes, it was well before I got any inclination that hammocks were something we could do. But we were in the tent, and I heard a noise. I was like, I think there's a bear out there. And he's like, no, there's not. Just go back to sleep. I'm like, no, there is something out there. So I zip open the tent, and I look out, and not only is there a bear, but it has his backpack in its mouth. And so I'm in my boxers, and I grab my boots. Yes, at the time I didn't hike in trail runners. I was all about boots. Heavy. I think I had some big, heavy Zamberlin boots at the time. Some big all leather, nice boots, but yeah, heavy. So I'm boxers, boots, and I'm yelling at and chasing this bear, and it is galloping away, trotting away with his backpack in its mouth. So I'm banging things, yelling, trying to get it to be spooked. But obviously this bear has seen people before, doesn't give a crap, No. So I pick up a rock and I huck this rock at it, and I hit it. I hit it pretty good. And it stopped, and it turned, and it looked at me. It sat back on its back legs, and as if to say, screw you, just shredded his frickin' backpack. He had forgotten 1 pack of oatmeal in a side pouch. We had everything in bear canisters except for this 1 packet of oatmeal. And yeah, the bear found it. So we used the miracle cure of duct tape the hell out of the bag, and continued with our trip. Yeah, it was pretty epic, a pretty good story, but neither one of us will ever forget. Have to ask him about it sometime. Maybe I can get him on here to talk about it at some point. Alright, so Bolin01. Have you had a chance to hammock hike outside of the US? If not, where in the world would you like to go and why? You know, I was thinking about it. I've done a lot of travel, especially when I was in the military. I did a lot of travel, and I know we took little trips, and I may have done some hiking here or there. I remember there was one time we were down in Honduras, and I really wanted to get out into the Cloud Mountain National Park there, but because of different threats and stuff that were going on while we were there, wasn't allowed to go down there. So I think right now I'm gonna have to say not really. I mean, I've done some in Europe, but not enough and not recent enough for me to say, oh yeah, this is what I did. So if I was to do anything, you know, kind of along the same lines of the Australia thing would be really cool because it'd be with my son, and that's somewhere that I know he really wants to go. But for me, it would be New Zealand. There is like a 44 or 40 mile, they call it a track there. It's called the Queen Charlotte track. And I think that's something I would love to do. Just the views there, the ruggedness, the isolation, that, or maybe something down in like the Patagonia area. Those are the 2 areas that kind of come to mind. But the Queen Charlotte track is something that I really want to do. So maybe that would be what I'd go with. Okay, so the next question came from John P. And it was one of several questions I got that were asking about getting my wife or the rest of my family together, everyone together, out backpacking. And actually it was kind of funny. One of the comments was on a post on Facebook, and my wife actually responded, and essentially her answer was hell no. But there's a lot more to it than that. So, oh man, I'm telling lots of good stories tonight. The first Christmas that we were together, I was very into backpacking and camping and stuff, and she got me like a $500 REI gift certificate, and actually I still have the receipt from me going and buying all that stuff from that first Christmas together, and that was, you know, 20 years ago, and I still have that receipt to this day, because I was just absolutely shocked and blown away by that gift and the fact that she did that for me. I got her a gift as well. Because I was into backpacking, I got her a backpack for Christmas. And to this day, she talks about the worst gift ever being the backpack. There was more. I gave her, you know, she was really into teddy bears, so there was a really cool teddy bear and a new Kenwood stereo for her car. So it wasn't just a backpack, but when she tells it, it was just a backpack. But it wasn't. All right, so because I had gotten her this, and I had plenty of equipment on my own, especially after I had, you know, that big gift certificate to spend. So I took her out. I took her out with me, and we were talking about this just before I moved out here. As these questions were coming up, we kind of mentioned this one, and so she couldn't remember the trip, and so I was telling her about the trip and how, you know, she was freaked out at any sound outside of the tent. Yes, another tent thing. Because again, way before any of this stuff was going on. So she was freaked out. So I had a little handheld radio, and so I had that on. Because anytime she heard a deer or a squirrel, it was a bear, and the bear was coming to eat us. But that was what I remembered about the trip. What she remembered about the trip, I hadn't remembered, but once she told it, I do remember. We had backpacked, it was up in the Sierras, and we had backpacked in, I don't know, it was probably only 4 to 6 miles. It wasn't very far, but it was uphill. I remember that. So we got to the site, and it was along the bank of a really nice alpine lake. And so I stripped down naked, and she thought it was hilarious, and I got in the water. Well, it was cold, so I didn't get, I was getting in the water completely naked when a couple came around the corner, and so I sprinted naked back to the tent. But so that's what she remembered, and I didn't remember that at all, but now I do. But as far as will she go backpacking with me, no. I'm sitting in her form of camping, which is this camper at a campground with electricity, running water, and a flush toilet. That's and a shower. So as long as she's got those things, yeah, she'll go camping with me. So my buddy Frozen out there at Outdoor Adventures just got back from his Superior hiking trail trip, and so his question to me was, do I like hiking solo, with a friend, or a group, and how does trip preparation change with each set? So I started thinking about it, and really I think that this could be a video again all by itself, and I think I'm probably going to do that. But I talked a little bit about this when we were out on the Laurel Highlands hiking trail. I was out there with Frozen and Gary and Meerkat, and both he did a video, I did a video. Meerkat did a little something, and then we did the question and answer afterwards, the live one from Frozen's house. But I mentioned this during my video, that there's definitely a different atmosphere hiking solo versus hiking with a group, and it's easier to get lost in the conversation. The terrain doesn't seem as hard because you've got things to take your mind off of it rather than being solo. I do like hiking with Mike, with Beekeeper a lot. Sherpa Man and I have done quite a few hikes together, and I really enjoy the time with him. I don't get to hike nearly enough with him. I wish I got a lot more time to do that, but he's up in upstate New York. I'm all over the place now in Oklahoma again, and you know, he's got a family, young kids, whereas Beekeeper's youngest only kid is in college. It's easier for him to get free and come and do some hiking. Plus he's retired, and Jeremy Sherpa Man works 6, 10, 20 days at a time, so you know, that definitely makes a difference. I do enjoy, especially for doing the videos, I enjoy the solo trips. I still I've gotten better, but I still have trouble with the doing videos around other people. You know, it's just my introvertedness that comes out. Handyman Adventures, what camera and editing software do I use for creating my videos? So I've got 2 different cameras that I'm using. I've got the Hero Black 5 that I've got right now that I'm using. I have a 3 Plus Silver, which was what I had before getting the 5. I've got the audio setup stuff that I use, which is the Zoom H1, and then I've got this new mic, and I couldn't tell you what the brand of the mic is. I've got the light now. I've got a couple different tripods and handheld monopods that I use. But for the editing software, I don't have anything fancy. I use what came on my MacBook, which is iMovie. Sure, I watch some of these videos out there. I watch some of the special effects that Syntax has, and I'm like, damn, I would love to do that. I don't know how he does it. I'm not talented enough to do it. I watch other videos like Homemade Wanderlust. Her stuff from the Sierras was so awesomely edited. She isn't doing it. She's actually doing the videos and then sending them back, and she's got a friend that's doing all the editing, and they were just incredible. I use iMovie, and for now it's been good. It's been good enough. It's easy to use. It's something that I've become familiar with, and it works for me. It doesn't take me probably 100th of the time that it takes Syntax to edit and put in special effects and do stuff that he does, and others out there do the same thing, and it's pretty incredible. It's pretty awesome. I think sometimes I would really like some of those effects and to be able to do it, but for what I'm doing, I think what I've got has been working. If I'm wrong, if you guys think it sucks, let me know. Let me know if I need to invest in something better. Maybe that's why you're asking. So, Up Trail 71, another awesome channel you guys should go check out if you haven't already. Have you ever had problems with blisters on your feet when backpacking? I only had a few minor blisters, and if it's extremely wet conditions. Once I took off my soaked socks and hiked a few miles without them. That was not a good idea. Yeah. When I was hiking in boots, I had blister problems all the time. Since I went to trail runners, I really haven't had too many problems. That being said, the last pair of Hokas that I was using, I could not get the footbeds right. The footbeds that came with it caused a ridge along the outside of my foot that would blister up. So I bought the Smart Feet or Super Feet green, and they worked a little bit better, but I still ended up on the Laurel Highlands trip getting a couple of blisters. So I believe that those did come from the same problem that you encountered. We had a lot of rain, a lot of water on the trail, and the day that I got the blisters was a day that we were hiking through water for about 4 hours straight, some of it ankle to shin deep, so the feet were definitely wet. There are some really good ways to get around it. Darwin has done a couple of videos where he's mentioned Leukotape, and it's a little bit better, in my opinion, than any of the moleskin type products out there. It's more like a second skin type thing, but it's a tape. It comes in a roll, and that seems to work really good to provide a friction barrier. Also, Syntax and several others out there have done things like the little... Syntax had them sent to him, but they're like pantyhose feet. If you go onto Amazon, if you go and check out his video on them, they're called liner socks. They're calling them liner socks. But if you go and look up what they actually were on Amazon, they're like women's pantyhose feet things. But what I'm getting at is liner socks. So a very thin layer sock between your normal sock and your foot helps to create something that will rub before your feet do. Very effective. I know that Jason Frozen from Outdoor Adventures has been using every day after he gets done hiking, especially while they were doing the 240 miles of the Superior Hiking Trail, a salve on his feet that helped to, or balm or salve or whatever it was, to help to keep his feet from cracking and drying out. Because if you're in wet conditions day after day, they'll get really soggy, but then when they dry out, the sogginess has pulled all the moisture actually from your feet and they crack. And then they start peeling and you have other problems. So if you can do something to protect that, like this salve, whatever it is that he has, seems to work pretty well. You can also use Body Glide. And then another thing that I was doing a lot while I was hiking on the AT was at lunch, regardless of how my feet felt, take a longer lunch, take the shoes off. If I was at a stream, soak my feet in the stream, and then switch socks. So I would carry 2 pairs of socks because you were sweating a lot. So sweaty socks are just like walking through water. Swap them out with some dry ones, hang the other ones on your backpack, and then by the time you get to camp, they're dry again. Okay, last question I've got on here is from David J. How do you gauge the proper distance between the trees for a proper 30-degree hang? And it's kind of like what I was talking about when I was answering Alice S.'s question. And so what I'll do is the perfect set of trees for me is 3 full paces. So left, right, left, right, left, right. So if I stand feet together at a tree and I take 3 full paces, that is the perfect distance between 2 trees for me. And at that distance, the suspension will be hung about as high as I can get my arms. I'm pretty short. I'm only like 5'7", 5'8", so that's not that tall. That's like eye level for someone normal human height. And then if you're frozen, that's like jumping, climbing the tree, and then wrapping something around it. But yeah, that's how I do it to find the perfect tree. Now, you can go inside of that, you can go outside of that, but when you go inside of that, you don't go quite as high with your suspension, and if you go longer, you have to go higher, which then means finding a way to get your suspension higher than where you normally have it. So that's really what it's all about, is the distance between the trees can be adjusted as long as your suspension is long enough to accommodate that. You just have to figure out a way to get if they're that wide, you have to figure out a way to get the suspension higher in the tree. Now, if you are too close together, the one problem that I have had is that when I was using whoopee slings, and this is why I've gone away from those, I didn't have enough adjustment on the whoopee slings to get where I had a taut ridge line. I just couldn't get there, and so I had to find wider trees. So as long as your suspension will support it, you can go lots of different distances, and that's about that. So those were most of the questions. I had a couple other questions that I pulled out, and I had some that really were duplicates, repeats of ones that I had already answered. But from this, really, there's a couple of new videos that I really want to do. And a big theme with a lot of them was, what am I doing now that I'm here in Oklahoma? So for the next, who knows how long, I will be living here out of my camper until our house sells and we find a house out here and close on it. Even if we were to sign something tomorrow, that's a minimum of like 30 days to close on a house. So at least for the next 30 days, I expect it's probably going to be 2 to 3 months, likely. I'll be here by myself with no family to really have to look after or be with. And that's a bad thing. That's not a good thing. Don't take it that way. I would much rather be with my family than to have this time where I can go out and do the hiking whenever I want. But it does give me that freedom. It does give me that opportunity. And so, finished work today, got here, had some things to do, doing this video now. Backpack is packed, ready to go. Tomorrow morning I'm jumping in the truck, heading out to Greenleaf State Park. It's about a 20-mile loop. I'm not going ultralight. I've got 3 different tarps in the bag right now. I've got a couple different hammocks, a couple different things going on there. Not going with the lightest food, but I've got a bunch of stuff that I'm actually taking out there to test this time. And so I've got backups of things just in case the stuff I'm testing doesn't work out well. And so it's not going to be the lightest of trips, but I've got it in my Appalachian Ultralight, and I'm going to have a good time. Going to go and have some fun and just get out there, enjoy myself. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the time, the trips, trying to hook up with a couple of people out here in Oklahoma to set up shuttles or car drops so that we can do, some of the longer trails. There are a couple of trails between Oklahoma and Arkansas and in Arkansas that are are 160, 250 miles, the type of thing that takes a lot of time. And if we could spend some weekends and maybe a couple of 3-day weekends and tag team this thing, we could really start knocking some things out and having some fun and getting to know the area and getting to know some of the people here. I'm actually headed down in November to Texas for one of the hangs down there. And that's another thing that I really think this is going to be great, is I'm going to get to meet a whole new set of people, hangers in this area, backpackers in this area, and get exposed to different things, put different videos out there, and maybe gain a whole new group of followers, a group of people that are watching, viewing, and commenting, responding, interacting, and growing this community around the Spiguyver backpacking channel. I think it's pretty awesome. I think that it's going to be great. So that's what I've got going on. I hope that answered your questions. Hey, if you guys have more questions, go ahead and throw them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback on this one. What do you think? You know, respond to some of the stories that I threw out there. You got your own stories? Throw them down there. Let's hear them. I'm going to finish this and then keep getting my stuff ready and head out in the morning. So I'll see you guys down the trail. Thanks.